Hello, let me check in with another two essays from On the Cusp of Contact by Jean Barman, Gender, Space, and Race in the Colonization of British Columbia. I'm really good. I'm really glad that Sean and I are doing this two essays at a time because at least so far, it's been quite good because what we found is, at least from the first check-in to this one, is that there's a pattern of we get one essay and then another essay that seems to expand on the other essay, whichever one it is. In this case, and they seem to get interesting how they get published, because the first essay that's published, Indigenous Women and Feminism on the Cusp of Contact, 2010. And then the next one is Indigenous Women on the Streets of Victoria, Rethinking Transgressive Sexuality During the Colonial Encounter. It's 2005. But both definitely, what happens is that the one in 2010 has a little subsection which is then expanded in the 2005, was more expanded in the 2005 one. So yes, this first one of Indigenous Women and Feminism on the Cusp of Contact is talking about three specific encounters that happen at kind of on the cusp of contact, sort of on first contact with the Nootka women in 1778, and then basically the kind of the shutting down of things, where we're going from contact to settlement with the kind of the gold, telling about the gold rush days in Victoria with the dance halls and stuff like that in 1858. So in this span here, showing how the women, with the intervening one with the uppity Kwantlen women of Fort Langley in the early 1800s. Yeah, starting off with the Nootka women who these are all particular peoples on the West Coast, and we get different reactions. But the Nootka women were very much with this is the encounters with the first explorers, the first whites coming in, and them refusing to give, like, there's certain things that these guys want coming in. They're wanting goods, they're wanting kind of to learn about where they are, but they also want sex, because they're, I guess, the median age young guys who want sex and are wanting to barter and get women for sex, something that doesn't get put in the history books. And how the Nootka women were like, no, we don't want to do that. And there was a lot of frustration, like, why aren't, from the whites, the guys saying, like, why aren't the Nootka men making the women do this? And it's like, finally some women get produced, but they're very unwilling. And it turns out they're not Nootka women. There are slaves, which is, one of these uncomfortable things, is that, the various tribes in these areas, they practice war, and they took people as slaves. And these are the lowest in their society, who don't get a choice in the matter. So probably really aren't that happy, which is like, it's like one of those, don't idealize anybody, because there's various not great things happening. And then we get the uppity Kwantlen women of Fort Langley, who are again, shown as very kind of independent women. I think it's flummoxing the men who really believe that, like, well, they should be submissive and and do what they're told, and not like engage in trade or anything like that, and it quite shocking them and flummoxing the guys. But they're like, no, I'll, if I don't like the situation I'll just leave. And then the third one, which we get more into in the second essay, is Indigenous women working in kind of dance halls in Gold Rush era, like 1858 is when the Gold Rush happened, and an influx of miners. And women were needed to keep these miners around in areas. And Victoria especially is a way station. The great fear is, if we didn't have these dance halls, they'd lose them either to they'd stay in the like kind of the Fraser Valley, or they'd go down to San Francisco. Um, so there's this thing of like coming out of October, kind of well aware of kind of the Victorian double standard, which still echoes today. Um, Interestingly, how things of like how it was prostitution is tolerated and accommodated in a heavy um, this heavy male dominated process of empire of colonialism, early colonialism. And just how even just the idea of a subjugation of a place was seen as sort of sexual conquest, rape, stuff like that. And the first essay, it's definitely the thing of like the use of feminism as a way of kind of kind of conceiving what the Native women were doing, and it's like there's a part of me that's like, is feminism uh like just the concept of how it is termed feminism, is this a Western thing that is getting overlaid on the Indigenous women of the time? Though Barman definitely makes the argument that like, look, just because that Native people didn't have this patriarchal, so many of the tribes didn't have this patriarchal system of stuff, that there doesn't need to be like a patriarchy to resist for there to be indigenous feminism. But there's always just that thing of like, is this white feminist put overlaying stuff on top of indigenous women's experience? You know that was just like a general thing. I mean, I think Barman says at the end of the essay that this is hopefully a way of showing indigenous women's like independence, agency, at a time when there was very little chance for agency, and unfortunately, as she says, it was in vain for how much power that they could exercise, and that it would but that it represents as a part of the changing nature of and possibilities for indigenous feminism. So I'm a dude. I'm not indigenous, so I have no idea about that. But yeah, just kind of that kind of idea kind of got on me. And then the second essay, Indigenous Women of the Streets on the Streets of Victoria. I should look at that and make sure I get that correct for Sean. What the hell is it? On the Streets of Victoria. On the Streets of Victoria. Rethinking transgressive. Yeah, it's in the wrong band. Rethinking transgressive sexuality during the colonial encounter. Which, yeah, very much. This, published in 2005, repeats a lot of the information of the dance hall section of the first essay. There's definitely a thing here of like, okay, we're like, this is published in 2005, and it's like rethinking older historians' ideas. 1977, Contact and Conflict by Robin Fisher, which seems to just sort of accept the dominant narrative of these were prostitutes that were a trouble for Victoria, and kind of pulling that apart in kind of more interesting ways. Noting that defining indigenous women basically not behaving like women, that thus they were all branded as prostitutes, allowed the colonizers to do whatever they wanted to Native women, and many of them there's a hunk of them that were doing stuff that wasn't sex work, but still got lumped in as they're basically, you must be a prostitute if you're a Native woman. Boy, the number of uses of the S word in this essay and the other one, just like, and quotes from contemporary times. It's just like, yeah, super gross. But yeah, more complex kind of exploitation, not just like the physical, just the physical exploitation of using having using native women for sexual gratification, and just making the point that it's not all just like short term. There was like a really interesting kind of story of the Haida woman Jenny and this William Giles, and kind of just this whole little saga of they thought he was dead, and people were coming in searching the thing until police kind of pushed them out of the way, and then he just turned up alive again, and he seemed to hang out with her for a while after that. But yeah, also underlying again the economic exploitation that Victoria itself, the colony, needed women to keep the miners around. Both the government officials and large and small businessmen were in that. There's the political advantage of attempts to regulate and deregulate Native people. It was a hot potato between when finally the council comes in and the mayor, and there being kind of a class thing here of you've definitely got more. You're moving up into the middle class versus the miners, and that sort of thing. And then there's just the fucking horrible shit of the moral outrage people. Amour de Cosmos, the second premier of British Columbia, complete fucking asshole writing, talking about as the inferior race and all that stuff, and being rousted by a police officer who he's basically asking, where can I find a prostitute, kind of thing, a native prostitute, which just shows him. And this Methodist minister, which goes back into this whole thing of segregating. We want to move them away from us. Moral repugnance of these complete assholes. And then just really sad thing of just this epidemic that happened, smallpox epidemic that happened, that kills like half the population on the coast, and 7 out of 10 of the Songhees, the Lekungwan people, in specifically kind of Victoria. It's like so freaking devastating. Kind of heightening again that thing of just how bad contact was, how such on the short end of the stick that Native people were. I think I found this a bit more of an interesting essay, just because the whole feminism thing, it's like there's a categorizing thing here, which is like slotting stuff, whereas the thing of, well, I mean, it's categories again. It's like if you completely are defining essentializing, as I think is to say the word, of Native women as just kind of their sexuality, then you can do whatever you want with them, which is something that's is obviously something that echoes down to our today with how Native women are treated, how they are often the victims of crime, of violent crime, the missing and murdered women's movement, trying to kind of fight against this, but yeah. So I guess that is my thoughts on this chapter. I'm going to try and now do that a lot shorter, with a little message to Sean about it. But hopefully saying it out loud gets things a little bit sharper. I'll try. We'll go from there. All right, more videos later.